Hello, trampoline friends. Welcome back to Trampoline Insight. I'm Nuno alongside Stephen Gluckstein, and this is episode 17. And today we're going to talk a little bit about this return to training.
That's right. Since most athletes have been away from training for 2 to 3 months, we're going to tackle the difficult questions of reopening from the perspective of an athlete, coach, and gym owner.
Many states went through this situation. What's happening? We don't know when we're going to open. We don't know what to do. We don't know anything. Let's try and break it out a little bit for you guys.
Right. So basically, it was pretty frustrating when we didn't have a plan in place during those beginning of quarantine, right? So not having a plan caused many issues financially and mentally on people. So the same thing can happen between coach and athlete. That's why it's so important to have a plan in place. So let's begin by going over the dangers of not having a plan, and then go over the plan that USA Gymnastics has sent out as a recommendation to all athletes, coaches, parents, and gym owners. And I believe we also have a document from Portugal sent in to us, right, Nuno, that we can talk a little bit about, see what other countries are doing as well.
Yeah, we would love to know what other countries are doing also in their specific discipline. Just comment on the video. Let us know what's happening with you all. I know. For example, Argentina, it's only scheduled to start training in August. I know it's a long time. So we have information from the United States. We have some information from Portugal because it was sent to me directly for us to talk a little bit about this. But it's still a little bit up in the air. And like you said, Stephen, that creates a dynamic between athlete and coach and athlete and sport that breaks the rhythm there. So tell me, Stephen, in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest dangers in all these situations, mentally and physically? What do you think?
Right. So I think the athletes, once they come back to training, they're going to be so excited, right? For most people competing in the sport, it's their life. That's, what they do. And so having not done it for 2, 3, 3.5, probably some of people even going on 4 months, they're going to be so excited, right? And they're still going to have a little bit of reservation, maybe a little bit of nervousness, but they're going to be excited for the most part. And I think the scary part is, they don't know when to stop, right? So, and this, when the kids are having so much fun playing games, right? That's when they don't even realize, that's when the accidents happen, right? When they're having so much fun that they're no longer being careful, right? And so basically they're going to be so eager, not only because they're having so much fun, but because they're going to be like, did I lose my skills? Did I lose my skills? Can I still do it? Can I still do it? And they're going to be really eager. Can I try my Rudy out? Can I try my Triffus? I want to see if I can still do it, right? And I think the danger of letting them do that is, number one, injury. And it's not injury like an accident's going to happen where they're going to fall and hurt themselves, where a lot of people think injury. Injury as far as chronic, right? So if they come back too fast after 5-6 days, right, they can have some back pain from the compression that their body's not used to, right? They can have pull a muscle, right? Or strain a muscle. And yes, straining a muscle isn't the worst injury, but it's going to put you back again another 7, to 14 days. Who knows how bad that strain is. But and I think it's for the mental health as well. I think we need to slow them down, because sometimes when you start overthinking things, and this is that time is when athletes are going to be overthinking the most, that's when they start to kind of, I don't know what the right word is, right? Freak themselves out a little bit, do a double full instead of a full, or, Rudy instead of a brandy, or something along those lines, What about you? What dangers do you see?
I can tell you that I was lucky enough to open, I guess this is our 3rd week open already. So we had some state imposed guidelines that we had to follow, and we still have some state imposed guidelines we have to follow. And I saw exactly that, to be honest. They come very, very motivated because they haven't jumped for 8 weeks. So they come extremely motivated. They want to do everything. We start slowly. We start with basics. you know, I don't think they were in the worst shape of their life, but they were also not in the best shape of their lives, right? So I had to adapt every day. I had to adapt a little bit of the training plan I had in my mind. So, but I saw that a lot. They came the first week, they were really, really good. But at the end of the first week, their back was already showing
Mm-hmm.
signs of jumping a little bit too much. I try to limit the time on the equipment and give more time on the ground and give them more time to play on the equipment too, for them to go back to the special awareness to the levels that they were before, which takes some time, as we know. But it's just like that. They get, because everything was so normal for them. Oh, okay, I was a little bit afraid of this, but now I did it. Now I'm happy. They they want to do more, and they want to do more,
Right.
and they want to do more, and we have to put a stop to it, and explain to them that calm down, one step at a time. It's not on the first day that you're going to do drifts. It's not on the first day that you're going to do fulls. It's not on the first day you're going to do
Mm-hmm.
millers, right? And I hope this is something that the coaches can look at it and see, okay, yeah, whenever I open, I'm not going to let my kids just go all in and let them do all the skills that they were already doing before. uh, I hope they can look
Mm-hmm.
at it that way, because now I'm on the third week, right? And because I started slow, my kids are on the third week. They're almost doing all the skills they did before, almost. Some yes, some not. And now we're actually starting to connect them more on the third week, which I don't think it's too bad, to be honest.
Right.
For an 8 week stop, it's not too bad. But I think if I would have pushed them a little bit faster, or if I would allow them to do what they wanted to do on the first week faster, we probably wouldn't be here. We probably have to stop a whole week just to recover.
Right.
Because
Exactly. And that's another good point, right? The danger is like you have an athlete that comes in, okay, we're gonna do just, backs and brainies today on day one, right? And then day two, you're like, oh, that was pretty good. I feel great. Swing time, right? And
yep,
then, day three, compulsories. And then, you start feeling great. And then you realize that you're starting to burn out, right? And
yep,
then you have to take some time off as well. It's kind of like running a 5K, and your first kilometer, you're sprinting. You're like, this is awesome. I feel amazing, right? And then
I
you get to
feel
kilometer
so
two,
awesome.
3, 4, and then you start to peter out, right? So I think it's important that we are building, right? And not, spiking. You don't want a volatile return, right? You don't want to spike and then come back down, and then spike and come back down, right?
And I
And
can
I think
tell you,
that's tough.
I can tell you, even with this approach, that I think it was close to optimal. No, nothing is perfect in life. Everyone is different, right? Probably some athletes could have been done a little bit different. Others were probably not fast enough. But I think for the group that I have, it was close to optimal, right? I still had a couple of athletes on at the end of the week two, motivational wise, like, this is harder than I thought it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be, and going a little bit downhill, right? I had to readapt again my training plan to keep them motivated for week three. And this week three that we just had, it was actually really, really, really good. It was really, really good. Not at the level that they were before, of course not, but at least
Mm-hmm.
they were successful on the tasks that I asked of them, and they keep building and they keep growing. And some of them are actually doing connections they never did before, because now we have time, so we can actually play with connections of skills that we didn't have time before. So that's one thing that I think it's good from this stop, is that now you can start slow. You're not
Mm-hmm.
pressured to start fast. And I
There's no
did see
competitions, right? So
there is
the
no correct, correct. So I think all of them have their goals. It's important for all of them to have their goals, but unfortunately, we don't have a competition that we say, okay, I want to do something there, and so I'm gonna backtrack and do the periodization to do to
mm-hmm.
plan. Right? We can't really do that. So we're going a week at a time, individual goals, not new skills yet, but building drills towards those new skills that we want to do. Where do we want to start next season? Doing what? Right? And I think that's the important part: is plan. Do good plans, see where you want your athletes to start at the next level, this next year in January or February. See where you want them to start,
Mm-hmm.
and adapt for that, right? Because everyone is different, and some of them will be very self-motivated, but there are others that won't be self-motivated at all. So,
Yeah.
and they will go down on the motivation, unfortunately.
And I think having a plan. So there's two things kind of that sparked a thought, right? So number one, I have this new, and I haven't been back to the gym yet. Our gym unfortunately isn't
I know
open
you're still
yet,
at home,
and
right?
yeah, and but my motto for the first few weeks are, if I'm not bored, I'm doing something wrong, right? Because because you're gonna, as a coach, I'm gonna get eager to start coaching and
I
teaching, right?
know.
And it's not that's not what the first few weeks are about. It's not about teaching. You're not teaching anything, right? It's kind of like when the kids go back to school in September and October, they're kind of doing an overview of what they learned last year, right? They're not yet learning. Um,
Yeah.
and
They're
then number
basically
two,
reteaching their bodies how to absorb all the loads that we observe on a regular basis, right?
exactly.
That's what we're doing.
Right. And that's one, it's literally just jumping, because that's the one thing. As much fitness, as wonderful as Zoom is, and I think this quarantine, I don't know if there's any team in the world that wasn't doing some kind of strength plan with their athletes,
Hmm.
right? As much strength and conditioning that they did, there's no way of really 100% simulating the forces of the trampoline and the jump of the trampoline, unless you're jumping on a backyard trampoline, which still isn't the same, but I guess it's the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
And the second thing that you had sparked, when you had talked about a plan, right? So these plans are there to help coach and athlete stay on track, right? Because, like I said, not only the athlete's going to be super excited, but the coaches are going to be excited, and they need those plans to help keep them on track. So this week, we're only allowed to do singles, and we're allowed to connect up to 3 singles, and we can only take a maximum of 12 turns on the trampoline this week. The following week, we can only connect up to 6 doubles, and we can do, or 6 singles rather, and we can do this double. And we'll get into that plan, kind of what USA Gymnastics has, you and some of the other members of USA Gymnastics have put together. But that plan is in place, and not only the coach has to see it, but the athlete has to see it to understand, why can't I go to my Rudy ouch yet? Why can't I do my Triffus? Why can't I try my first two? I want to see if I can do it, right? So I think it needs to be shared and communicated between coach and athlete. And without a plan, it's gonna be tough, and there's gonna be a lot of fighting. There's gonna be a lot of lack of motivation, right? And there's gonna be a lack of motivation even with the plan. But if the athlete understands, like, okay, this is, and they can see the steps, right, to
Yep.
get them to where they go, they're like, okay, I know I want to do this, or I don't want to do this, but this is what this is what it's going to take to get me to where I want to go. All right, so this document from USA Gymnastics is not only kind of a plan for physical, right, but mental as well. And it's the reintegration of gymnastics, and it's from, I think they have here, right? So they have a bunch of doctors, right? MD, medical doctors, right? USA Gymnastics program staff.
They
They
forgot they
have
forgot my
some
PhD in front of my name.
uh right? So we have some USA Gymnastics coaches from all disciplines, right, including Nuno for trampoline, the medical staff that sits or works with USA Gymnastics regularly. Um, and basically, this document, and we'll put this out for you guys to see as well. But here's a table of contents. It goes over what is RPE, right? Rate of perceived exertion rather, and they go over mental health, nutrition, and sleep. They have a questionnaire which we'll go over as well as they get ready to return to training. And basically, I mean, it has a lot of good information. A lot of it seems like common sense, but it's definitely worth reading through all of it, um, just to kind of like reaffirm what you're thinking, right? So RPE, this is something funny, or not funny, but it's funny that we don't really use this in gymnastics. In like the fitness community and weightlifting, this is used all the time. And basically, it's how you're feeling in a nutshell. And the coach, and it's tough. The athlete has to get used to it, because they're like, I don't really know how I'm feeling. Some days I feel good, some days I feel bad. and the
It basically
athletes
measures. It basically measures how the athletes
feeling, right? But
during that training session, right? It just
right, but
so
it's
how fast are they getting to that point of exertion,
hmm
right?
but it's perceived, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
the and kind of you have to the coach has to match the athlete, right? So if the coach thinks,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
this training session, on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 5, right? It's not easy, but it's not tough by any means. And if the athlete says, my RP is at a 7, well then okay, then you guys are off. Then you need to make that obviously change your training workload to
Mm-hmm.
become what there is a 5.
What
Make it a little
they,
bit
yeah,
easier.
yeah.
And that's something you can research outside of this document as well, because there's tons of data and information on that. So let's keep scrolling through. This is kind of the fitness template. This goes through week 1 all the way to week 8. And you guys can check this out. And it talks about how many hours, what to
And
do.
that's just an overall. That's just an overall through all disciplines. Just
Right.
it's not a detailed one. We go to the detail for trampoline and tumbling on the appendix, but I thought this document is quite important because it gives the coaches a guideline.
Mhm.
It allows for the coaches to make the questionnaire, assess the athlete's physical fitness at that time, right, through the questionnaire, and then start at the week that they think that the athlete is. So week 1 was what we thought the lowest of the of or the most lowest possible would be 30%. No athlete would be lower than 30% of the fitness that they were before they start the
Right.
quarantine, right? So doing the questionnaire, the coaches can see, oh, this athlete it's definitely not at 40. You keep doing stuff, so is that
Mhm.
60%? So you can easily go to week 5 or 3 or 4. You go and you say what's the percentage that we asked during that week, and you can just apply your training plans based on what that percentage is for that week, and start at that
Yeah.
week and skip the weeks before, right?
Well, I don't necessarily think, and I don't think you think this either. I think it just misspoke that you skip them, right? You just maybe go through them a little
Well,
bit faster.
yes, a
You
little
don't
bit
just
faster.
jump to
Yes,
doubles, right? The
yes,
first
yes, yes,
day,
yes. Sorry.
you still
Yeah,
go through all
that's
those
that's
progressions,
what
but
I
maybe
meant.
week 1 is maybe day 1, right? And week 2 is maybe day 2, 3,
Correct.
4, 5, right? So they still go through
you
those same
just go through you
progressions
just go through the
a little
weeks
bit
faster,
faster,
yes.
right?
And then mainly on the technical part, because the rest is very similar. The rest is
Mhm.
very similar.
So let's check this out. This other part of the document that talks about injury prevention and risk. So here, right? So they go over like bone stress fractures, growth plate injury is a huge one, right? I'm sure that your athletes have done that. I don't even want. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this one. But this is where the tendon attaches to the bone, right? So common in trampoline is Osgood Schlatters, right? I know Logan Dooley had it. And a huge one, I've seen it, especially with my athletes that are tumbling and doing a lot of plyometrics on the ground, is Sever's disease, right? Where
Sever's
it's the
disease, yeah.
back, the back of the heel, right? Kills
Mm-hmm.
them. And they talk about what you should do about them. Stress fractures. I think like the one thing, right, to be careful is I had an athlete, a boy last year that was complaining, I have shin splints, and we weren't running or doing anything crazy. And it was like getting very localized, like in one spot. And I was like, dude, you need to go get it checked out. You need to go get it checked out. And like they got it checked out, and there was like it wasn't stress fractures yet, but it was oncoming. So luckily the recovery was, I think, half or maybe less than half of what it would have been had he had a stress fracture, right? So I think, and there's also some signs here that you can take a look at. Um, and also they have here, right, injuries that were prior, avoidance of overtraining. They talk about nutrition and sleep. So that's the questionnaire that you had talked about right here, right? So this is for the athletes, like you said, to fill out and give to the coaches, right? And most of these
Yep.
questions, I think the coaches know, right? I don't think any of the coaches didn't know if their athletes were doing gymnastics equipment on their home, right? I think most of the time they knew who had a trampoline at home, who was doing strength, right? Sometimes I guess the younger
Most
ones,
of the
it's
times,
tough to tell.
there are some cases that we don't know that they even own a trampoline. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. Right. So just to go over these, just a couple of them real quick, like, what kind of fitness level did you maintain? Did you do a strength program? Right. On a scale of 0 to 10, how fit do you feel? And then like some of like the mental side, what can your coaches do to help ease your anxiety?
see,
So Nuno,
number eight is interesting. Are there skills or
any
activity you are
skills?
hesitant to attempt in the early stages, right? Because that gives you the perspective if the athletes are scared of doing the skills that they did before, if they're not scared. I can tell that in my case, I did have some athletes that were kind of hesitant to do the progressions, but once they did the progression and then they did the skill one time, then everything just cleared
How
up.
how many athletes did you have that were fearful? Would you say it's like a majority or just like a minority
I
that
think probably half. I think probably half,
okay.
but not all of them express their concerns. I think
Hmm.
half I could feel in their faces when I asked the first double and the first half out. I could see in their eyes, but they didn't express. Other people a little bit scared of this one. Okay, let's go back to the drills then. Let's go back to redo the 1 and 3 or the back to back or whatever the skill is. And
Hmm.
but I would say that this is a very natural fear to have
Yeah.
because I would say, especially in our sport, this is the biggest one, I think, to redo the skill that you already knew how to do. I think that's the biggest one. I tell you the most interesting case that I have though. I had an athlete that prior to all this, he was having skill problems. Okay. With all this pause, and we started equal with everyone, drills and all that. He's doing all the skills, even the ones he was not doing before. He was
So
back
maybe
to
he just
doing
needed a
all the
little
skills.
break mentally, right?
Again, yeah, I agree. I agree. Just sometimes the competitive season does not allow us to have these
Absolutely, right.
breaks,
Right.
right?
So,
But
but you know what? Maybe that's a lesson that, because even though we coach high level athletes, we're still learning, right? And maybe
absolutely,
it's worth it, maybe it's worth it for an athlete to skip a few competitions, and so just like, so we could see that result, right? You
absolutely.
know, and who, get ready for the next year, right? Kind of
Yeah,
put
I
this
can
season
definitely tell
on
you that
wash.
he's stronger now than what
But
he was before we stopped.
right. So
And when
that's
I say stronger, I don't think physically he's yet strong, but mentally he's definitely much stronger
mhm.
now.
It's funny. I was thinking about this, and you tell me if you felt the same way. When I was training, like in, I guess maybe like late junior years, early senior years, late teens, early 20s, I felt like if I took off more than 2 days, like it was the worst thing in the world. Like I'm going to lose my rhythm. I'm going to, no, I never felt like I was going to lose my skills, but I felt like all that hard work that I worked so hard during the week, was going to like start fading if I took more than 2 days off. But then now after I retired, I feel like I could not jump for 6 months and get up and still do everything, the same way. So I think that it's a weird
I
mentality training, so many days a week, so many hours.
but I think it comes a little bit from the artistic side that this country have. Okay, because the artistic, they're very much like this. They usually say you skip 1 day of training is like losing a week. You skip to 1 week is like losing a month. You skip 1 month is like losing a year, right? They have this mentality that, trust me, when I was jumping, I also got into that. But then I was like, no. Okay, this is not what happened at all. I stopped 2 months after the Olympic Games, and it did not take me 2 years to come back.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's just it depends on the mindset that you allow yourself to go into. So, but I agree. But I think for you, mainly in this country, with all this artistic mindset that the Americans have, that artistic is
But
so
I
much
don't know.
superior. I
I was
think
coached
so.
by a Russian.
That is true. That is true. You're still coached by a Russian.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
right? So I don't know if that's necessarily
I
the my case.
I don't know. I felt like that sometimes. Other times I didn't feel any pressure. Stopping and not feeling
Hmm.
any pressure. Coming back and yes, I think after I stopped, there was always that hesitation of the skills, the progressions. Do the first one. After I do the first one, oh yeah, now I remember. Okay, let's go. Do more.
Hmm.
Always, but in terms of like feeling that I lost rhythm or fitness level, I don't think I ever felt that, to be honest.
So is there something specific that you've kind of been doing that's been working with your athletes to calm them down or to help them through that rough time?
To be honest, I think one of the things that would be the most helpful is letting them play add-on a little bit in the beginning, because with
Hmm.
add-on, they just it's like they don't have to focus on execution. They just focus on little skills, and then they do these things. They push for each other. I already had kids doing things that they never even did before. So just by
Hmm.
playing add-on, and I think letting them play on the equipment is a really, really big factor. If you let them play, they start feeling the air awareness by themselves. Whenever you ask them for the skills, they are halfway there. They're not all there, but they're halfway there. And that's,
Right.
I think that has been my main successful tool, if I can call it like that. But
Hmm.
because apart from that, they're all been jumping
Yeah.
really, really well. They're all been jumping really well.
And I
I
think I
feel
think
I feel like sorry. I feel like in terms of execution, 50% of them came back jumping better than what they were before, and it's really hard to put a stop and put a break when they feel so good in the beginning. It was really
right.
hard, but it really compensated, because now we're 3 weeks in. Backs are finally stabilizing, knees and feet and all those things. They're finally stabilizing. They're still jumping better than what they were jumping before. So I think it was helpful.
And I think add-ons one of those things, right? For that's awesome for the athletes for two reasons, right? Number one, it's not throwing big tricks. Hey, can you do this? Because they have to do skills before and they have to do skills after it, right? So it's not
Yeah,
just like, can I try the, and chuck this one big trick. So a lot of
yeah,
them, the tricks are tough. Maybe like a triple twisting back drop, right? Like a triple cat twist, where it's a little bit nervous, but it's not high risk. So I think it's good that they're trying new different things without the high risk of injury. And number
correct.
two, number two, I think it's good for them to be microdosed to fear, right? So it's not a huge fear for them to try a double twisting cat twist or a corkscrew, right? 1.5 twisting cradle,
Yep.
but they might be a little bit nervous, and then they do it anyway, and then they feel, okay, I was afraid, I did it, and everything's good, right? And everything's okay. So now they can kind of that feeling is fresh in their mind when they go to do their half out or double back or Rudy
There
out,
you
right?
go. There
So,
you go.
I
Yep.
think it's an add-on is a fantastic thing, not only for trampolinists, right? For artistic athletes as well. May not
For
be
everyone. Yep.
the tricks as big as as trampolinists, but I think it's great. All right, so let's check out these 8-week plans that you had been talking about. All right, so here we have on the left-hand column the week number, right? The goal of the week, and then the activity right here on the right. So there's an overall, and then there's sport, discipline, equipment specific, right? And I think over
Yep.
here, the overall right here, focus on fun, right? Especially those first couple of weeks. First week is going to be super easy to focus on fun, right? They're going to
Yeah.
be having a blast. Week 2, when they're a little bit sore, right? Things are getting a little bit tougher. Week 3, things are still a little bit tough, right? And I think maybe warming up with some games, some relay races,
Yep.
like you said, add on. I think that's super important.
And I think it's important to state one thing here, because I, like we already said a little bit before, this chart bases itself on starting at 30%, right?
Right
So
here, yeah,
so as you can see, we try to also say that you should try and use 30% of your equipment time of a normal training. So
right,
what do you do with the rest of the time? Because these clubs can't just limit their kids to, okay, you're used to training 3 hours. Now you're just going to come 1 hour because we're only going to do 30% of our equipment time.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, they won't survive like that. And I think that's in every country. Maybe I'm
Right.
mistaken, but I think that's in every country. So what we tried to do here was explain that 30% is of equipment time, but then you have the rest, the 70% that you should spread out with
Mm-hmm.
longer warm-ups, maybe a little bit of conditioning in the beginning of the
Yeah.
of the training before the equipment time, longer cool downs, conditioning after the equipment time, and that goes throughout all 8 weeks. And I think that's very important to state here, because when I looked at this plan the first time, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to apply this with my kids. I'm sorry, but the parents will demand that for the money that they're paying for these clubs to
Mm-hmm.
be sustainable, for these kids to be there for the 2.5 hours that I do a training, right? So
Right.
if I guide to only do 30% of the time on equipment, what do I do with the rest, right? So that's what we try to add here, and I think we did a good job. For
Yeah.
those that read the document, I really would love if you guys would drop a comment down below and let us know what you think about it, what you would change, what you add on it. But yeah.
Right. And I think, right, so some other things maybe not listed in here, right? So here to fill up the time, right, longer warm-ups, cool downs. And that's not just to fill up the time, that's to keep the athletes safe as well, right?
Right,
And to
exactly.
keep them like to minimize their back pain and hamstring pain, on week 2 and week 3.
But like you
Um,
said, I think maybe we could have had like some warm-up games on the warm-up, like the relay
mhm.
races. I think that would have been a great idea, like examples of longer warm-ups, like relay races, and
Yeah.
other fun, like tag game, or I enjoy doing crab soccer, for example. I love
Yep.
crab soccer. I think it's a great
Good for the hamstrings.
yep, great. I think it's great for them, right? And so I think those are kind of things that you can put here, right? And
Mhm.
and use the 30% to put there. And during the first week, if you don't mind just going back up a little bit more,
Yep.
during the first week, for trampoline at least, we recommended just connections, no,
All right.
up to single skill somersaults, and including the basic drills, because
Right.
I
Three
think it's important.
quarters.
3/4 front, tuck, pike, and straight, knees to stomach, full down. That's all they did, right? And then the
Even
full skill, the feet.
even doing, like, I think it's fun for the athletes sometimes we'll do is have them do level 1, 2, 3 and go through the levels,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
Have them do some weird connections. And this is kind of like a side note, so I don't think it's a secret that I've done CrossFit for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, there's a movement in CrossFit called the double under. It's with a jump rope. You jump up, you swing the jump rope 2 times around your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these people, these athletes that are like lifting hundreds of pounds super fast, running 5-minute miles, super fit, one of the coaches came in and said, okay guys, let's warm up with some single unders, right? Just jump rope. You wouldn't believe they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it
Of course.
because they've been doing the doubles for so long, right? That they
It
haven't
just
done a
became
single
natural for them. Yeah.
in 20 years, right?
The
So I
the
think
rhythm
that's,
the rhythm became like so
yeah,
embodied into them that now going to change that, it's hard. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So doing those simple basic tuck jumps, right? Seat drops, swivel hips. No one's too good for tuck jumps. No one's too good for pike
Yeah, of
jumps.
course. And I think that's a
So
great idea, going through the levels. I know other countries don't have the levels like we do, but our levels are available. They're public, so you can simply grab them or ask us for it, and
mhm.
you have your kids go through the levels. I think it's pretty fun, to be honest. I agree.
So we're not going to read all of these, but we'll just go over a couple. And one thing up here, right here, monitor body soreness and adjust load accordingly. And I think this is going to be really tough for a lot of coaches, because over the next for the next 1 to 8, or I guess no, 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how fast these athletes are coming back, you're no longer coaching a team. You are coaching each athlete. Right?
Yep.
And each athlete, someone's going to have a sore back, someone's going to have sore hamstring, someone's knees going to start hurting for no reason, right? And you cannot give a training plan for everyone, right? You're going to, okay, Susie, you know what? You're just going to do 4 turns today, only working on tuck jumps, tuck jumps and back drops and belly drops. You know what, Bill? Let's follow the plan and let's do all 12 turns or all 14 turns this week, And I think that's going to be another tough challenge for coaches as well, is not coaching the team, but coaching each athlete.
I was gonna say that's the hardest challenge, and that was the hardest challenge for me because, and I'm happy to have two coaches for my team, and we kind of split them. But that's the hard part because you have to individualize your training depending on how their bodies are feeling. So especially the first and second week was extremely, extremely hard because you plan something on your mind, you give them your training plan, and then after one turn, one athlete tells you, "Oh, my back hurts," and you're like, "Ooh, that one needs to be different already." And then
Right.
another one, "Oh, my knee hurt," and "Ooh, that one needs to be different." So you start having all these different training plans that you have to keep an eye on for them. And that, for me, that's one of the hardest parts, to be honest. But yeah, I think
And
it's very, very important.
And I think one thing that we do that I didn't do up until maybe a few years ago is use a whiteboard. And right, it sucks. It's kind of time consuming. But you write down the name, and it's really good if you're trying to limit it to turns. And that's one thing that's not here that I think can be here. They limit the time, right? So they say, okay, if you do 90 minutes on trampoline, you're going to do 30 minutes or 30%. This week it says 40% of usual.
Yep.
I don't know if necessarily everyone knows the time. I think what you can also do is time on equipment is turns, right? So if you only get 30 turns, a practice when you're training hard, you do 10 turns week one. Here, maybe you do 12 turns of practice, right? And you can limit their turns, and you literally just write their name and then 1 through 12, and then their plan right there. And it also helps you kind
Well,
of keep an idea of because sometimes you're like, oh, that's good, let's try this. Oh, that's good, let's try this, right? So it's very easy for both coach and athlete, I feel, to get carried away.
so let me argument on the opposite side. So, for example, for me, I I never know how many turns they do unless I go see their individual logs. I never know how many turns they do. That's point number one. And then when we allow them to play this add-on in the beginning, that's still equipment time and not really
Right,
turn
right, right,
time.
right.
So it, in my opinion, it's easier to control time than to turns. But again, there might be some coaches uh, that do exactly what you're saying. They control the turns for their training plan. So in that case, I think what you're saying is perfectly adequate. In that case, don't go with the time, go with the number of
Yeah.
turns if you control it better with the turns. My case,
Mhm.
I control it better with time. I know my athletes always jump an hour and a half. That's the time that I have slot for them to jump. Boom. 30 minutes of warm up, 30 minutes of conditioning, an hour and a half of equipment time. So
Yeah.
for me, it's easier that way. But like
But
you said, if you do turns,
mhm.
just adapt it to turns. I think that's a great idea.
I think what's tough here is that you have athletes like Cody, right? Your athlete Cody Gaselli, and then you have other athletes. You say 30 minutes, Cody will do 30 turns, right? You say 30 minutes, maybe you have another
He
athlete
won't.
that's going to do 2 turns, right? So, and the point is, right? You have 4 trampolines, right? The point is,
Yep.
across 4 trampolines, they might not be all moving at the same speed. So I don't know if you're necessarily getting the right amount, measuring the amount of workload that you could, if everyone's rotating the same amount of times, then okay. But I know
They
in
are
our
more or
gym
less.
we have some athletes that are going to go and go and go and go and go and
Yeah.
go, and then other athletes are going to take their time getting off the trampoline and switching, and they'll move a little slower intentionally.
Yeah, but we might have some athletes that do that. It's undeniable that that's normal to happen. But I think from what I saw from these 3 weeks, they kept more or less the same amount of turns because I gave a training plan to all of them, and I see where do they finish and who gets to the end and who doesn't get, right. So I know more or less who achieved what I wanted, who didn't. So, but there is always those stragglers that don't finish the plan, always.
Yeah.
So week 3.
Let's All right, so let's just briefly go over this, right? Week 3, no, first and foremost, check in with the athletes, see how their
Yep.
bodies are doing. And you know what? And also we talked about RP, which is like the rated perceived exertion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
these athletes are going to be you're going to be asking you, how do you feel? How do you feel? And these athletes are tough, right? They're going to want to tell you, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm ready to go, coach. I feel great, right? And obviously some are, on the other end of the
Put me
spectrum.
in, coach. Put me
Yeah.
in. I can handle anything. Put me in.
right? They're not gonna be honest with you, you know, as much as you like them to, and they're not being, honestly, some of them aren't being honest with themselves. So I think it's also important that you have some tests for these athletes, to see how they're doing it, and how their central nervous system is reacting. So some tests, right? You could do flexibility tests. Okay, let's see your, you know, seated pike today, standing pike. Oh, yesterday you were flat. Today your chest is 4 inches from your legs. Uh-oh, maybe we should spend a little extra time on flexibility before we go. Let's test your vertical jump. Show me how high. Can you jump up and touch that sign right there? Oh, you're not even close. Yesterday you had your whole hand on it, right? So you can do some tests on them to see how they're feeling as well. And you can play around with your athletes with different various tests.
So I
See how
think
they're
it's
feeling.
very interesting. I think that's very interesting, and I totally agree with it. But I would love to see the coaches uh, do this on a regular basis, and not just now
Yeah.
on going back to
Yes.
training, because
Yes.
I felt this was the easiest part for me, because my athletes know that whenever they're lined up and I ask them, how are you guys doing today? Who's sore? Who's not sore? Where are you sore? And all, it's normal for me to ask those questions. And for those athletes that are on the national team, they know that whenever they come in, the first thing that I usually ask is, who's sore today? How are you guys feeling?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, this is a natural step. So my athletes, I felt there wasn't any lies or deceivement from their part to tell me, oh no, I feel great when they didn't feel great, right? And I do think that the tests are good, because they're still development athletes, so they don't know their bodies at 100%. So sometimes they really feel great, but they're really not that great, right? So the tests are important. But I really would love to see the coaches do this on a more regular basis.
Absolutely.
Create this relationship with their athletes, that their athletes don't need to lie to them. They can explain to them how they feel without fear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, and if you can sync up or with a doctor of physical therapy, and also say, okay, come learn about trampoline a little bit, have them come watch the trainings, and they say, all right, you know, I think, you know, you see how that athlete's hamstring, you know, their left leg only goes 90 degrees and their right leg goes 120. Like, that's a big problem. They're going to end up hurting their hips are going to shift. They're going to end up hurting their back, right? So let's just call it Johnny, right? So Johnny really needs to do that. So you need to test him every single day, and he's not allowed on the trampoline unless he passes this test, right? And
Yeah.
and it's called screening, right? And the doctors of physical therapy, they do it all the time when people come injured into their office, or their work. So if you can find something like that, and have some, and they don't even have to be there every single day. They just say, hey, you know what, Nuno? Hey, you know what, Steven? This person, they need to do this test. This person, they need to do that test. And then you say, okay,
Yeah.
thanks, you know, physical therapist. And then you do those tests every day before they get on the trampoline to make sure they're safe. All right, so
So
let's keep going here.
for those that are not seeing, we're going on week 4 already, and let's make a little pause here on week 4. Yeah. So again, we check in with the athletes and ask them how they feel. That should be step number 1. And on a more technical term, we're at 60% of our normal load, and we're doing longer single somersault connections. And for those that don't know what Ross is what we use here in the United States to do back tuck, Brenny tuck, back pike, Brenny pike, back straight, Brenny straight, full Rudy, and then either double full or back pike, depending on the athlete. If it's Ruben Padilla, will do double full for sure. 1 and 3, Rudy ball out. So that's what we call Ross. That's our standard Ross that we use here, so everyone can speak the same language, right? And then some unconnected double somersault. So on week 4, we have a double tuck, double pike, maybe some half out tuck, half out pike, just single skills, no connected doubles, just single skills. And previously on the other week, we had drills for these skills. And
Right.
my recommendation is, if you see that the athlete is still struggling with some awareness or even some fear, continue doing the drills before full skills all the time until they feel
Absolutely.
comfortable.
And keep doing the drills even when they're doing the skills regardless, right? Just
Correct.
because it's not a stepping stone and you forget about it, right? That's
Yep.
that's one of the things Nuno and I are trying, you know, to get across with all of the camps and clinics and workshops. We come in and we do all these drills because, you know, they're not something to be put in the closet. You know, you have to stay up to date with them. You have to keep training them even though you have the skill.
Yeah, I actually would like, U.S. coaches and U.S. athletes. Do you guys think that the implementation of drills that me and Steven did, what, 2-3 years? How long I think probably 2.5 years that we've been trying to implement these drills. Do you guys feel that our athletes are safer? Do you guys feel that our athletes are actually more spatial awareness than what they were before? What's your opinion? Let us know. I would love to have some feedback on that. My opinion is I don't see as many falls as I used to see in the past. I see athletes more awareness that if a skill is not does not have all the components to finish rotation, all those things, they can protect themselves better by going to the drill previously to this for the skill, right? I see
Right, to
that
bail.
happening. Yeah, to bail, right? I see that happening more often. But I would love to know everyone's opinion on this.
Mhm.
Drop us a comment down below. Let us know what you think.
Yep, I agree. I would be very curious to hear others' opinions.
Yeah, because
So
I
then,
think throughout this time we have done plenty of clinics, plenty of camps, and we've been very, very serious in implementing these drills and make sure that everyone knows what the right progressions are for the skills. Not just, oh, I have a pit. Can you just say up and I'll just turn, right? So we've been very, very.
stern and
I
strict.
don't even know, strict. Yes, strict would be the word in people learning these drills, and I think that's important. All right, week 5.
So
Let's go to week
yeah,
5.
so week 5, they're already on the trampoline up to compulsory routines, right? Not necessarily the seniors and the juniors with doubles. And
Yep.
then here they're also learning or doing again, just connecting some double somersaults, 2 to 3
Yep.
doubles.
And the
Um,
reason
and
why I put youth elite there, compulsory routines up to youth elite 11, 12, is because there is no double requirement up to
right.
11, 12, 11, 12, right? It starts at 13, 14. So then I think for this week, 10 skills that are basically single skills, I think that was more than acceptable. With doubles, not yet,
Mhm.
I thought.
So I wanna highlight this really quick, right? So double somersault connections, 2 to 3 skills. You know what's gonna happen? Everyone in the country is gonna do, okay, let's go optional by 2, right? And I think this is important, right? This is important for you guys to become, for not you guys, but the athletes to become masters of trampoline, not masters of a routine, but masters of trampoline is to do all of the connections, to do double back, half out tuck, double back tuck,
Absolutely.
2 in a row, half out tuck, 2 front skills in a row, right? Get it mixed up, start mixing it up, get weird connections that you normally wouldn't do. Obviously build up to them, right? If you're not going to do Rudy out the first day, right? But maybe on Monday when you start doing, like, okay, let's do the half out tuck and double back tuck and vice versa. And then maybe by Thursday or Friday, you are ready for doing something like a Rudy out to a half out connection. Um,
So I can
but
tell you, that this week 3 that I just finished, this is what I applied for my athletes. So I did not think that they needed to start at week 1 because I don't think their fitness level was as low as 30%. So week 5 was what I started my athletes on, right? So, and even those double connections, I actually have been using a lot of singles in the middle, but like you said,
mhm,
a lot of different connections that they have never done before, like a lot of half out
mhm.
doubles, and for example, half out pikes not on the first skill and on the third skill, for example, that it's after you start the routine with half out pike, double half out, then going back to switch for the half out tuck from bounces changes their awareness completely, right? So that's the week that I actually just ended with my athletes.
So
So
if we continue, right, we can keep going. Week 7, 90% of the time on the trampoline, and then week 8, full week training, all the hours, right, 5 days a
Mhm.
week, 3 hours of practice. And I want to hint at something really quick, and you back to week 1 that you had said, like, as a gym owner, it's impossible. You're not going to have an athlete come. Um, you
Yep.
know, three practices for 1 hour. They're not going to come in for 1 hour, right? And I think, and they don't only miss the gym, but they miss their friends. Some of them,
Yep.
this is their family, right? These teammates, and they can still spend some time. And let me say this before I go to my next thought. They can skip a day of training. They can come in maybe on Monday and have a training, and then on Tuesday, maybe they just come and do add-on. They don't do a full training. And then on Wednesday, they
Yep.
come back to training, right? And
Absolutely.
maybe
Absolutely.
you can, if you have a TV set up in your birthday party room or coaching staff room, you can go and watch some videos and teach some history, right? And go over, or if you have presentations, or you're interested in presentations from other coaches and people that present at Congress and various events, reach out. I know Nuno has some, I have some. Reach out. You guys can go over some presentations with the athletes. There's plenty of things you guys can do without being on the trampoline every single day as well.
I think actually reviewing the drills, and we all have videos of the drills for the skills. I think it's important, especially at these stages that you're kind of afraid, or the athletes are kind of afraid if they're going to be able to redo them or do the skills. I think watching videos of those drills and skills, it's one of the best things that can help them.
So for some, that plan and sticking to the plan might be the easy part, right? Let's talk about the hard parts. How do we do our sport at the recreational level and competitive level with low risk of exposure to the coronavirus? And like, so what, your gym's been open for a few weeks. How are you doing this? Are the athletes able to stay 6 feet apart? I know it's easier than an artistic gym because we don't have chalk and we're not grabbing bars and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
It's still tough, right? So what have you been doing?
So let me start from the beginning. So week 1 and week 2, we had the limitation that we could not share apparatus. So for example, we have 4 trampolines. We had the athletes come in packs of 4 and 1 person per trampoline, 2 hours of training, and we rotate them every 2 hours, right? So what we did is 1 person per trampoline, unless they're family and they're already together. If they're family and they're already together, then they could share the same equipment. I thought that was logical, right? If they're at home,
right,
sharing the same space, then they can share the same equipment there.
Right.
We finish at 2 hours. They clean their own equipment, and the next group would come in. That's what we did for 2 weeks. On the 3rd week, which was last week, we were allowed to start recreational classes and we were allowed to start sharing equipment, but we still felt there was a need for some separation, right? Because in our sport, it's not so easy, right? So we have all the doors open, and we are lucky enough to have 2 garage doors plus the front door. So the air circulates really well. We have 2 big fans plus fans on the doors. So that's really helpful. We do not use the rope to climb because I think that's a thing that promotes
at
a
this
lot
point, it's
of,
not necessary even.
I know, right? It promotes a lot of germs, and it's hard to clean. The rope is hard to clean. So the rope is on the side.
So
And
let me interrupt you real quick, because you're talking about cleaning the equipment in the athletes that cleaned it. What are you cleaning? Are you the mats are on
the pads,
the
mats
pads?
and pads? Yep, mats and pads. Yes,
and you have
the
wipes or
mats,
sprays or what?
we have some rags, and then actually before we closed, someone gave us some hospital grade, and I don't know the name, but it was a spray, right? So we've been using those. We had a lot of those, so we've been using those with the rag. We get the clean rag from here, clean, and goes into another box that's all dirty, and then we bring it home, wash it, and then boom, take it again. So that's what we've been doing. And then this week we still clean after every class, but we're allowed to share equipment. So what I've been doing is I put on one side of the trampoline on the ground, I put a little dot like for preschool, on the other side another dot.
And when you say class, are you talking about team or rec classes?
So this is more for team, because rec classes,
Okay.
Unfortunately, our numbers dropped a lot. So we limited those classes already to 4 per class. So they really only have to share to share. So two athletes per tramp on the recreational classes. So they really only share 2, because we our numbers really on the recreational level, they really went a lot lower. Team, we had some people moving out of the city and going to other cities, so we lost maybe 4 athletes total on team, but on the rec classes we lost easily 25 to 30 athletes, and we're not a big gym, so 25 to 30 athletes is half of what we usually have on the rec program.
Wow.
Yes, it seems to me, and like they're coming back. It seems to
slowly.
me the numbers are a little bit slowly, but people are still a little bit afraid of what's happening. So that's what it looks like. We keep getting more registrations, so we're a little bit higher than half already, but we're still not even close to the number we were before all this started. But what I do with a team that I have to have more than one per trampoline. I put one dot on the ground, another dot on the other side, and the athlete only stays on that space. So they climb on that side of the trampoline and they go down on that side of the trampoline. The other climbs on this side and goes down on the side. If they want to push the mat for each other, they use a mask to push a mat for each other. If they want to circulate around the gym and go to the bathroom, they use the mask. So those are the things that we had to impose, and I think they've been working really well. Actually, I think everyone has been staying safe. Another thing we did, we have a little floor space, so we divided the floor in squares with 6 feet by 6 feet, right? And with a little bit of Velcro in the middle, so they know where the center is. And whenever they get in, they put their stuff on their cubbies that is already separated, and they're gonna go in and sit down in one of the squares, so they're separate from each other and with their mask. Whenever we start warm up, they have to maintain separation. If we're running, they go one at a time to maintain separation, and everything they maintain separation from there. But I think the hardest part is no doubt when they're jumping, right? So if we have 2 or 3 per tramp, 2 on the side, 1 on the back, and they have to circulate in a way that they don't use any space that the other ones use. Simple as that, right? And then when we get to the end of the class, they clean all that area, and the next class comes in. So I think it's been working. It's not an easy process though, because wearing a mask, I don't think we're made to wear masks 100%. So it's a good test.
Definitely.
It's a good test to see if you want to be a doctor, right? If you
they have to wear them all day every day, right?
If you're comfortable in wearing that mask 6-7 hours in a row, then tip top, you can be a doctor. If you don't feel comfortable or you can't breathe, then don't think about being a doctor.
And I think some of these regulations, right? So some are from the CDC and some are from your local government, right? Your state. Yeah. And because I know some are mandating that their temperature is taken before they come in. Right?
I know in Portugal it's a recommendation. It's a recommendation to take the temperature. We never actually had that recommendation, and we never did it actually.
I think it's tough. I mean, I think it's obviously you want to take as many steps to make people feel safe, right? But there's a 2-week incubation period where you're not showing symptoms, right? So it's, again, you want to take all the steps that you can, but I don't know if that's
I was reading the document that was sent from Portugal, and there is one time that one recommendation, I think it's on phase 1, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's on phase 1 that they recommend the coaches to work 1 week and then stay 1 week at home and do rotations. I'm not sure how that would work, but it's quite an interesting logic there.
And I think another thing that's tough, is the arrival and dismissal, right? Because you don't want to say bye kids and then they all run together, right? At the end, right? So, I think something, as simple as, transporting them from their squares one at a time and dismissing one at a time when their parents are in. Right. But man, you have to get creative because there's all these little things that you have no idea how to go around.
I think every day we look at something like, oh, we should probably optimize that one. For example, we have a little viewing area, not very big, right? But right now we remove half the chairs that were there to give bigger gaps between the chairs, and we basically have 6 chairs. That's it, 2 rows of 3. So, and the team parents don't usually come to watch practice, so that's not a problem. And the recreational athletes, not all of them have come to watch practice, so it made our life even easier. But even that, we try to clean every day, because that's obviously a point of focus that needs to be cleaned several times, I think. Because if you come and watch a class, then the next person, when they come and watch class, they can easily use the same chair, so it becomes a problem, right? But I think none of this is easy. I think as we go, we always we keep looking back and we see, okay, wait, today we could probably have done that one a little bit better, so let's try and make it better tomorrow, okay? Or, for example, all our staff is using masks, right? We do not spot. We're not spotting yet. We might start spotting this coming week, since we're more allowed to do more things, right? So until here is like coaches are with masks, and we'll stay behind. We don't touch the athletes. We tell them what to do. We give the instructions. We push the mat with the mask if we need to. But that's it.
Right. And that's another good point, right? Is why, this should be a gradual thing. Is they shouldn't be needing a spot in the first 2 weeks, right? The first 2 weeks, the athletes should be, going through progressions on
Even
their
first,
own.
even first 3 weeks, I think. Even
Yeah.
first 3 weeks, I don't think they should need a spot, to be honest.
Yeah. So that, I mean, I think it's safe too, as far as taking the right protocol, right? Everyone needs to stay 6 feet apart, including the coach to athlete.
Yep. So are you excited to open, or does New Jersey has a time to open?
We might be in like 2 weeks, maybe. It depends. It's tough, and it's all like everything gets grouped into indoor activity of childcare. So it's like, do
Yep.
I fall into this bubble or that bubble?
Or
And you're
that
just kind
bubble.
of
Yep.
like, where do I fall? I'll be honest. I'm really excited to get into coaching, but I have a lot of anxiety about doing everything I can to keep these kids safe.
Yeah, of course.
And God forbid you slip up and forget about something, and then one kid is sick, and then it starts spreading, and it could be because you made one mistake. Well, you can't make
Yeah.
mistakes, right? Because this is a something that's deadly. So it's scary. It gives me a lot of anxiety, but I'm very eager to get back into the gym. All right, guys, that concludes our conversation today on going back to training. We hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something. And if you guys want to share with us your protocol, you guys can reach us at trampolineinsight@gmail.com, on Twitter @trampinsight, or on Instagram @trampolineinsight. You can also send us a voice message by following the link in the episode description. Also, shout out to Tom Hamblin. I know he's been sharing a lot of information on gyms reopening and the protocols that they're taking on Facebook, and I think mostly on the Trampoline and Tumbling Coaches Corner. So if you're not part of that, you guys should definitely go join that group. There's a lot of information shared there as well. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you guys on the next episode next week.
I just, Steven, I'm sorry, I forgot. I just wanted to give a small message to all the athletes that cannot train yet. Keep your spirits up, okay? Keep your motivation up. And I know, especially in Argentina, that the cases are keep growing, and that the timeline keeps extending. And now it seems to be August that you're allowed to train. Stay motivated, guys. Come on, stay motivated. One step at a time. This will pass. Stay safe, and then you'll be back training. Okay, stay safe.
Absolutely. It's tough, easier said than done, but these athletes at this high level, if anyone can do it, they can do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So
see you guys soon.
Stay tough. Bye, guys.